Ten years ago, my son Michael was diagnosed with intellectual disability. His condition is close to autism. It is called Fragile X. I remember that day vividly, not because that news had shattered our family. I remember it because the day started out with the four of us in the bathroom: my son, my daughter, my husband, and me preparing for the day. And it ended exactly the same way, with the same four preparing for the night. Despite the diagnosis, nothing had really changed. And yet, in our society, such a diagnosis is often interpreted as the end of the world for those who are affected and their families. But I would like to disagree. Such a diagnosis categorizes, triggers some medical, administrative, social system, sure, but it is not the end of the world. I believe that any diagnosis of disability, rather than creating despair, should raise the question of its opposite. Nature is a balanced system. It offers what it takes elsewhere. We call them disabled because they do not have the same capabilities as us. But they might have other capacities elsewhere. A better integration of disabled people in our society might not mean to assimilate them into whatever we deem normal, but rather to understand how they complete us. I love this quote I have once read online. If you laugh at a different child, he will laugh with you because his innocence surpasses your ignorance. I want to tell you about the main benefit that I have gotten from 10 years with my intellectually disabled son. Sure, when I got my son's diagnosis, I was upset. It came unexpectedly. But I never suffered. And 10 years later, I can say that I have learned more than I have lost adapting to my son's reality. He allows me to be who I truly am because his difference compels me to question myself about my inner life, about my existence, about my role. He has a sort of pure essence that I treasure. He brings flavors to life that I had forgotten because, like many among us, I kept pretending instead of living fully. So, what are the main benefits that I have gotten from 10 years with my intellectually disabled son? I would mention three. The first is mindfulness. I didn't realize how many times during a single day I have reason to be happy about my life. Not by buying something new or doing something trendy to search for the approval of our society, but simply enjoying a true moment of happiness, like a good meal, a nice walk, or an interesting discussion. Michael loves watching rugby on television. For him, every match is as intense as the World Cup. He stands up, his hand on his heart, and he lives the whole game as if his life depends on it. He truly is in the moment. Seeing him reminds me that often in life, great things are right in front of us. We simply need to notice them. A second benefit is time management. Michael cannot be rushed into things. So, we had to review our perception of time to join him in a dimension where we could function together. It started with limiting the number of activities, precisely preparing the days in advance, and learning how to use time instead of constantly catching up. It isn't easy, as many of us know, who are constantly running after time. I found that it helps if you learn how to make time and dedicate it to specific purposes. I remember that I used to think that my life was full before. And now that I have many more things to manage with this special gift, I have the impression to have plenty of time ahead of me. One place it has been particularly liberating is the weekend. We used to spend our Saturday trying to catch up for everything we have not been able to do during the week, running, being stressed. That all changed. Since Mike cannot be rushed into things, we are never in a hurry. And everything that cannot be done today will be done tomorrow. My perception and the way I manage time change drastically. And finally, I also learned how to enrich my emotional intelligence. One summer, we went on holiday for a week with some old friends who had kids. Globally, everything was going well. We had rented a big house with a pool and plenty of space to spend quality time collectively and individually. Mike was often aside in the corner of the garden. After a few days, I went to see him to understand why he was so distant. And he told me that it was nobody's fault, but that some people felt more comfortable than others with his handicap. He's a natural radar for emotion. He sort of sees through you. So many times we will come home from work and being stressed out and sad, and he feels it instantly. His mood changes, he adapts. He can't always process it, but he feels it and acts accordingly. And he can even do this with strangers he has never met. Empathy is the most valuable lesson my son teaches me. Mike is not pretending or acting his life, so any moment matters. For happiness, in time and with others. I remember that cinema told us already 20 years ago about the power of different intelligence when a friend reminded me of Rain Man. Remember that movie? During those 2 hours, the character played by Tom Cruise, confronted to his savant autistic brother played by Dustin Hoffman, morphed from a seemingly perfect and successful but selfish and ignorant businessman into a loving, caring, and happy brother. We could have built on this essential message, but we didn't. Instead of bearing the weight of the difference, we could make it valuable. One way to do so would be to employ those that today we exclude and invalidate. Or, to use a fashionable expression, ones that successful startups have seized upon, we could call that deploying unused assets into the economy. I believe that the special perception provided by intellectually disabled people and their way of living are indeed some of those unused assets that we are currently letting go to waste. It starts with accepting neurodiversity, but it goes far beyond that. Intellectually disabled people can bring added value to our society because they are life achievers. Just consider their strengths. Free of the mental barrier responsible for isolation and segregation, they are natural-born mediators. Incapable of going as fast as society, they are human metronomous, experts in human and natural rhythm. Because every day they are forced to try and compensate their handicap, they have proven to have superheroes' capabilities. My son Michael once told me, when I have kids, I want to teach them to be happy. I don't know if he will have kids one day, but I do know that teaching happiness is something he's capable of. Thank you.